My story is not like others I've heard, and I know it will be hard to believe, but please, give it a listen and then decide for yourself. In 2012, I walked out of a hellish marriage, and I then returned to Tacoma, Washington, to be back among my family and friends. The marriage and the following divorce took a heavy toll on me mentally, emotionally, and definitely financially. When all was said and done, and I had the divorce-granted papers in my hand, I felt a weight was lifted, but I was still in need of hitting the reset button on my life. Here is where my Uncle Cliff stepped in and helped me out. My Uncle Cliff is part of the cabin deal that's offered by the U.S. Forest Service. It's called the Recreation Residence Program. You get a 20-year lease on a historic cabin that already exists in national parks or other government land. You pay for it, but you have to keep it up according to their rules. And there's a whole list of things that you are allowed to do, and a much bigger list of things you are not allowed to do. But it's all worth it to be in such a rustic and, in some cases, a very historical setting. Uncle Cliff has a lease on the cabin, and it was built in the 1940s. This was no luxury cabin, but neither was it primitive. There was limited electricity from a generator and some propane, and there was running water that you could use for washing, but not for cooking or drinking. There was a septic system as well. All of this was put in because of the U.S. Forestry program that he's on. But if you want to go get some groceries from the cabin, well, you're on a 2-hour round-trip journey at the minimum. That is, if you hurry in the store and don't dawdle around. It was remote and just what I needed to do that reset on my life. I had a full 2 weeks off from work, and I planned to come down off that mountain a different man. And that is what happened, but not at all like I had planned. Uncle Cliff drove me up as far as we could go. Then together we walked the supplies up to the cabin. He left with the promise of checking in with me every few days since there was no cell phone reception up there. The first few days were exactly what I needed. It was peaceful and quiet. I soaked up the sun that came through the trees. I listened to the night noises while sitting in the darkness on the porch. I spent the days reading or finding miscellaneous projects to work on. I sat outside most of the time when I could. The crisp air was refreshing, day or night. I spent a lot of that time, though, just reflecting on things and making mental plans on how I was going to start my new life. I was healing. I felt it almost immediately when I got to the cabin. On the third night there, I sat out on the porch with a camp lantern for just a little bit of light. I had the wick trimmed very low. Sometimes animals were curious and they would come right up on the porch. But I'm not crazy. I'm always armed when I'm out there. But I never had to shoot at anything. Almost everything that came up to the cabin while I was there was just curious, and then they would quickly leave. Well, except for one thing. There was one thing that was definitely curious, I think, but it didn't leave so quickly, and it kept returning, and it brought its family and friends. I sat there that night, and I was beginning to feel the night chill get stronger, so I got up, went inside to get a jacket. While I was in there, I boiled some water and made myself a French press full of coffee. I loved sipping hot coffee in the cool mountain night air. When the coffee was done, I took the mug and walked back outside and sat down. About 10 seconds after I sat down, all the night noise in the forest died down and went silent. It was as if God turned the volume knob on the television of Earth down to mute. It left an unnatural silence that made my skin prickle. I had always heard that everything goes silent when there's a predator around, so I double-checked my .45 was loaded and ready. Then I thought to myself, no, this is stupid. Just go inside. Whatever it is, leave it alone. So I stood up, picked up my mug, and the camp lantern and walked over to the door. When I walked that way across the porch, the camp light suddenly went to the other side of the porch and illuminated that. When it did, I caught a flash sighting of a face that quickly whirled away and melted into the dark side of the cabin. I froze, and my heart started beating like crazy. This is a very remote cabin. Let me stress that. You can't just get here by car. The only known neighbors are also on the same residential recreation program, and they all kind of know each other, and they don't trespass. You can only go so far towards that cabin up a locked gate road. From there, you're on foot for several hundred yards to get to the cabin. And that locked gate road, it can only be opened by people who have a key. That would be those are residents along the road and U.S. Forestry Service. I once asked Uncle Cliff, and he said that in all the years that he'd had that property, not once had anyone ever walked across the land it was on. He never once had a trespasser in over 30 years. So I'm thinking on that, and I'm also thinking that the face I saw was not a man's face. But it also didn't seem to be a face of any animal that I knew in the area either. But what did I do? I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" Please don't ask me why I did that. I have no answer. I did it knowing I wasn't going to get an answer, even if it was a person. I waited for just a few seconds, and of course no answer came. I quickly slid inside the door, turned and locked it. I only had one light on inside the cabin, and it was a very dim light. I turned it out and extinguished the camp lamp that I had been carrying. The cabin was now in total darkness. This is a kind of darkness that I have never experienced anywhere else. Even when I lived out in the country, if all the lights in the house were out, I could still see the neighbor's light a mile away across the fields. The light was just a tiny dot in the dark, but it was there. I could see it. But in the forest, well, you don't even get moonlight sometimes. It can't always make it through the dense trees. There are also no street lights, no neighbors' lights, no telephone pole lights giving an ambient light, even 100 yards away. The forest is a black unlike any other. It's black like a heavy velvet. What I saw at the end of the porch was a black shadow in the black shadows, but it was there. Cautiously, I made sure the 3 windows in the cabin were all closed, locked, and the curtains closed. Not that any of that would have stopped what I saw, especially if it was what I thought it was. The last window is the one that I really didn't want to go near. That was the window on the side of the cabin where the shadow face had melted away too. I got to the side of the window and carefully looked but didn't see anything. But again, the black velvet dark meant it could have been standing just a foot from the glass, and I probably wouldn't have been able to see it. There was no moon or starlight out. It was blacker than black out there. But I had no choice when I pulled the curtains closed but to stand up next to the window, almost in the middle of it. I stood there, arms stretched out and high, grasping the edges of the 2 curtain pieces, and I suddenly stopped. There was something outside that window. I squinted and focused, and for just a brief moment there was a glimmer of moonlight or starlight that came through, just enough to make the black shadow a little less black, and I saw the outline of a head and shoulders. I didn't even close the curtains. I backed away from the window so fast I almost fell on the table and chairs. I retreated far to the interior of the cabin. I checked my guns, sat there, and sweated it out until the morning. I left the door open so that I could see and hear if anything broke through to the rest of the cabin. But the rest of the night stayed silent. I watched the windows as it got lighter and lighter outside. When it was very light, I chanced to glance around to the big room where the window was. I saw nothing but the trees outside. Cautiously, I went outside and checked all around. It did look like something had been trampling around the cabin in the dirt, but there wasn't a single print I could identify. But being out there in the sunlight, I had second thoughts on it, and I began to wonder if it had just been shadows on an almost moonless night that was playing tricks on me. By noontime, I felt positively better about it. But that night, I made sure to have all the curtains closed before dark. I did not sit outside that night either. If something was out there, I did not want to draw it in. Because let's face it, no matter what I tried to convince myself of all day, deep down, I knew what I had seen was probably a mountain Sasquatch. I was very alert that night, listening and waiting. I ended up falling asleep on the love seat. I woke up with the fire in the wood stove down to ash and embers. I fed it the last bits of wood and got it going again, then made myself some oatmeal and toast for breakfast. I was finishing up, and the sun was rising. It had been quiet all night, so I thought my shadowy visitor must have moved on. Now, one of the chores for the day was to get more wood from the cord piles and bring in enough to last for a few days, as I had used the last of it to make breakfast. The cord piles of wood were set between some trees off to the left of the cabin about 25 feet away. It's an easy task. You just pile a bunch of wood up on the porch and then take it from the porch inside. I walked out to the cord pile, and I had loaded my arms up with wood and turned around to go to the porch, but I stopped in my tracks. I know of no other term for it, but there was a Sasquatch, a big mountain Sasquatch, and it had come to stand between me and the cabin's porch. How it came to be there and that I didn't see it, didn't hear it, I don't know. I had a firearm in a waist holster, but my arms were full of wood. The Sasquatch stood perhaps 15 feet away from me, which isn't much when you're face to face with a mountain Sasquatch. The face was very human-looking. The eyes were dark, and they were set deep into the head with a bony ridge brow above. The forehead slanted back and came to a sloped point. The jaws and the lower face were very wide, and everything was covered in thick, short black hair that laid tight against the skin. Its lips were a pale gray color, as was the little skin that I was able to see around the eyes and the nose. Its height, well, that lived up to legend. I would guess it was no less than 8 feet tall. It might have been even taller, and it had a very beefy physique. It was looking directly at me. I was frozen stiff like a board. If I had turned around and there was a bear there, I would have known what to do. But this was unknown for me. I had heard of Sasquatch. You can't live in the Pacific Northwest and not hear of Sasquatch. I did know of a few stories about them. But with all of that, I had no idea what you should do if you run into one. If it had a look on its face, I would call it either disdain or malice, maybe a little bit of both. This was not the sweet, fuzzy, friendly Sasquatch that some people tell stories about. It seemed to be letting me know something. That it considered this its territory, that it wanted food, that it wanted me to leave. I don't know, but it was trying to tell me something with that look. This standoff lasted maybe 3 or 4 seconds. It sure felt longer to me, but realistically, I know it wasn't. The Sasquatch gave me one last look, then walked slowly over to the back side of the cabin. It did a sort of a sideways step, always keeping its eyes on me while it did so. When it passed the back of the cabin, it picked up speed, stopped looking at me, and went straight deep into the trees that went up behind the cabin. Maybe it was shock, or maybe it was being numb. but I couldn't move. I just watched it go. Then I snapped out of it, and I took the wood to the porch on shaky legs. I went inside the cabin and sat down for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, just letting it sink in. I hadn't been mistaken the other night. There was a Sasquatch hanging around. But why? I knew better than to dispose of food scraps anywhere near the cabin, so that wasn't it. All other trash I had would be packed out when I left. That was one of Uncle Cliff's rules. So I wasn't sure if it had been out there when I went out, or if it came up after I went out. Was it sneaking up on me and I just happened to turn around in time? Or was it standing there the whole time, waiting for me to stop being a stupid human and to notice it? I can't tell you for certain either way. But that night, I was on edge, and it was mostly quiet. Well, until about midnight, that is. I was napping on the love seat near the stove when a loud bang woke me up. I wasn't sure what it was or where it came from, but I knew it had been real. I was sure I had heard it. I quickly sat up and waited a second to see if anything else happened. There was another sound, another bang or thud, then the sound of something rolling off the roof. If those were rocks, I thought, they must have been huge. The cabin was built sturdy, but was it enough to take that kind of an assault? I didn't know. I was wide awake then, and I kept both my handgun and the rifle that Uncle Cliff kept in the cabin. I kept them both loaded and ready right by me. This attack, for lack of a better word, went on for about 2 hours. Then it would go quiet, maybe for half an hour, and then it would start again. It felt like the whole cabin would shake. I couldn't figure out what they were doing. Around 5 a.m., dawn was now getting close, and I saw a blue light outside. It had been a couple of hours since I'd heard anything, so I took a chance, and I took a peek out of the side window. I was confused by the shapes that I saw on the ground outside. I was expecting to see big rocks, mostly because I did remember some old story about people in a cabin getting bombed with big rocks by some angry Sasquatches. But what I saw out there, they weren't rocks. They were pieces of firewood. They were all around on the ground. I stepped closer to the window to get a better look, and I suddenly had the scare of my life. The face of a Sasquatch suddenly appeared in the window. I jumped back real quick. I was standing in the middle of the room, and it was still at the window, looking in at me. I'm looking at it, and I see its mouth open and close a few times very fast. It kept looking at me. It opened its mouth several times, but I heard no sound. Then I saw its hand come up and feel the glass pane of the window. I swallowed hard. But it didn't seem to understand that it could break that glass, and I guess that's a good thing. I just couldn't take it looking in at me, so I quickly retreated back to the bedroom where the curtain was still closed. I stayed there for more than an hour, only venturing out when the sun was completely up and the day was bright outside. I looked out, and I was right. The split firewood that had been stacked outside was now everywhere. I went out and looked up. Several pieces were still on the top of the roof. The area all around the cabin looked like an explosion had happened. I did not feel like I was safe enough to go out and start picking up the wood, not without someone to watch my back. I had already seen how quietly they can appear within a few feet of me, and I have no idea. Suddenly I felt trapped in the cabin. I didn't know if it was safe enough to walk down to the road by myself, even in daylight. I also knew that my uncle would be coming that day, and I had no way to warn him. I also didn't know what time that he would be here, so all of that made it very stressful for me. I was debating with myself when I heard my uncle's worried voice calling out my name at the edge of the trees on the trail. That was about 100 feet from the cabin's porch. He had his rifle off his back and was walking quickly and cautiously to the cabin when I walked out on the porch and yelled out to him. He immediately wanted to know what the heck had happened here. Why was the firewood all over the place? I didn't know whether he'd believe me or not, but I told him. I told him everything that I saw. He looked around and he saw the pieces of wood still on the roof. He saw all the wood all around. I had to go through the whole story a couple of times, and he had an endless supply of questions. I told him that if he'd watch out for me, I'd go around and start picking up the wood, and I did. I preferred to do that than have him stand there and keep looking at me like I was crazy. We were done at approximately 2 p.m. He then said that if I would stay one more night, he would stay with me. He said he wanted to see for himself. He'd had that cabin in its lease and renewed it at least once since before I was born. He said that he had never seen a thing like what I described. But even by his own admission, he hadn't been spending much time at the cabin, well, not so much over the last several years, mostly due to his health. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay another night, to be honest. But I also wanted him to see and experience what I had as well. I also felt braver and more calm with him there. He's just that kind of guy, you know. He can handle anything you throw at him. I really wish I was like him, but it turns out I'm not quite like him at all. I walked with him back to the car, and together we brought in the couple of bags of groceries that he had brought for me. I was nervous walking the woods, but he didn't seem to be nervous at all. While we were at the car and while he was calling my aunt to let her know, I had the strongest urge to say F it to everything, to get in the car and demand that he take me home. But I didn't. That evening we had supper together, and the truth was I was enjoying having him there. All that time I thought the key to resetting my life was to spend time alone. But it turned out there's a big difference between being alone and being lonely. I found that I was quickly very lonely, and I hadn't even realized it. And it was good to have some one-on-one time with the man that I always looked up to. We talked over the things that had been happening again and again. Uncle Cliff really felt that I had been mistaken, or that someone was out there messing with me. I assured him that was not the case. I had seen what was doing it. Of course, I figured that tonight would be the night that those things out there would leave the cabin alone. They would make a liar out of me, I felt sure. But oh no, they showed up. I have since read about the Ape Canyon incident and other things where they've attacked cabins with people in them. But the thing with those incidents that I noticed is that someone usually attacked them first or shot at one of them. But I had done nothing of the sort. To this very day, I have no idea of what I might have done to upset them or to make them focus on that cabin. Uncle Cliff said, leave the curtains open and to leave a light on inside, and we also left a battery-operated lantern just off the one side of the porch, within view of the window, just so we could keep an eye on what was out there, if anything. We spent all that time picking up the firewood and restacking it. And you know what they did again? Yep, that's right. Those wood pieces started hitting the roof, and Uncle Cliff was mad as anything you can imagine. He went from window to window, trying to look outside without being seen. He wanted to catch someone at it. He was just sure it was someone messing with us. Now, who that someone would be all the way out there wasn't something he had an idea of, but that made more sense to him than a Sasquatch, I guess. And you know, in hindsight, I can see that. I once heard my aunt say that my uncle had more balls than brains. I never knew exactly what she meant by that. I had never seen that in him before. But I did that night. Uncle Cliff was very angry. Knowing to replace the roof on that cabin would mean a lot of paperwork to get the permits and a lot of cost. It was all because of the recreation residence programs and all their stipulations. There's all these codes and things about the cabins that they have to keep it to a particular type of authenticity. So he was not happy. So what did Uncle Cliff do? He took his rifle, walked right out on the porch, and began yelling into the forest all around. I was standing just inside the cabin in the doorway, begging him not to do that, to come back inside. But he was too mad. Whoever was throwing those logs stayed just out of sight. When he yelled, the throwing stopped. A second or two went by, and then a piece of firewood came flying out of the darkness. And if my uncle hadn't seen it coming and ducked, it probably would have really hurt him. Now he was really mad, and he walked around the cabin, shooting his rifle off into the darkness and yelling. He didn't care if it was someone out there. Later he said he took that piece of wood to be a lethal projectile, so whether they were messing around or not, it had just gotten deadly, and he was meeting them with the same deadly force and threat. I think he let off about 4 shots. He also had a handgun holstered on him with extra magazines in his belt. He walked around and around the cabin in total darkness, yelling and challenging whoever was out there. Now this is the more balls than brains that my aunt talked about. I was not going out there. I had seen one of them up close. I begged my uncle to come back inside. It was like he didn't hear me. He kept muttering to himself, and then he would start yelling into the darkness again. The only good thing about this is that he now knew none of the firewood throwing was done by me, and that I wasn't telling him tall tales. I waited near the door, sweating bullets and nervous. I kept calling out for him to come back into the cabin, but he was still out there walking around, yelling to the dark forest. He was really wound up. Then suddenly, I didn't hear him yelling any more. It was eerily quiet. I kept calling his name, and I got no answer. Now that scared me, I won't lie. I took another battery camp lantern from inside and inched my way out on the porch and looked down the side of the cabin that I had last heard him on. I was shocked to see him lying face down. I ran to him, and he was just starting to come back to. He had been knocked out. He groaned. He was definitely hurt. I helped get him up, and we started trying to walk back to the front of the cabin, with nothing but darkness all around us beyond the glow of the camp lantern. We were almost to the porch when a large shape moved in the darkness just a few feet away from us. I held the lantern up, and I saw the same kind of face that I had seen before. Dark, hairy, intense, and unhappy looking. I heard an expletive come out of my uncle's mouth. We stepped onto the porch, and I got him inside. But we had a shadowy escort just a few feet away the whole time. "Now do you believe me?" I asked him. He never said yes exactly, but he didn't say no either. After a few minutes, he looked at me, thunderstruck, and he said, "My rifle! It's still out there." He said that all he knew was something hit him hard from behind. The blow connected with the right side of his ribs, which were exposed because he was holding the rifle up. We would find out later the next day that he had cracked ribs all down that side. He was in some real pain, but all he could think of right then was his rifle. It was his good rifle, and it was his favorite. I told him I'm not going back out there, and neither was he. I still had the rifle that he had kept with the cabin, and it was just a .22, but it was better than nothing. We still had both handguns as well. We sat in the semi-darkness of the cabin, waiting for whatever was going to come next. It was a very long night. We heard a cadence of howls and some strange Ewoks sounding backwards talking outside. But the most frightening thing came just before dawn. We heard the sound of a rifle being fired. Just one shot. Then immediately there was a loud screeching scream of pain. Then there were more howls joining in. The sound of the rifle came from behind and a little bit away from the cabin. My uncle was not willing to get up. He was in that severe pain. But I went, and I looked out the window from the bedroom to the back, and I saw several dark shapes darting between the trees, maybe 150 feet away. They were all screaming and circling one particular shape. After a few minutes, they melted away into the trees up the mountainside. With full daylight now shining on the cabin and the surrounding area, I ventured out. Of course I was armed. I was looking for my uncle's rifle. I never found it. But I also only went so far from the cabin, and then I stopped looking. I did not want to go over to where I had seen those dark shapes from the window. I just wanted this to be over. The only tape in the cabin we had was duct tape, but I taped my uncle up the best that I could, putting the duct tape over his undershirt. It wasn't great, but it helped. What would have normally been a 15-minute trek to the car area took over an hour. My uncle was in very bad pain, so we went very slow. I was terrified the whole time that they would return, maybe with the rifle. What if they had learned to actually shoot the rifle? I didn't have time to think too much on that. I didn't want to. I just had to get us out of there. And we did get out of there. And my uncle, he got the x-rays he needed and proper medical attention. However, a decision was made. He chose not to renew that lease, and he ended up selling that cabin. A large group of us family members went there a couple of the last times just to put things to right and to close it up. Eventually it was sold with all contents inside. But of course only after the roof was replaced. It had sustained a lot of damage. Now, if anyone doubts the intelligence of Sasquatches, tell them my story. Tell them at least one Sasquatch out there understands what a rifle is and has fired a rifle. Well, that is, he's out there if he survived. I have an inkling that he might have somehow shot himself, but I never went out there to look for the blood to prove it. My uncle thinks that is what all the screaming out there was about. One of those Sasquatches picked up the rifle that was knocked out of my uncle's hands when he was hit by one of them. And as far as my uncle is concerned, he got what he deserved. I still have no understanding of what triggered these events. I mostly stayed in and around the cabin when I got there. Maybe they had moved into the area recently, or at least since the last time people were at that cabin. I did nothing to provoke them. Unlike my uncle, I am not more balls than brains. I do not go stomping around in the dark of night yelling at unknown creatures in the forest. This email is now very, very long. It's taken a few days to type it up because I keep going through it and adding things. Use what you want of this. I don't care if people believe me or not. Other people believing in my experience is not necessary for it to be true. And it is true. And you can believe I don't look to spend time anywhere so remote anymore. Thank you. You can sign me more brains than balls.